The train whistle pierced the dusty air of Silver Creek, Colorado, as Olivia Prescott clutched her weathered suitcase with trembling hands. The year was 1879, and she had just traveled over 500 miles to meet a man who no longer waited for her. The telegram had arrived just moments before her departure from Boston. Her fiancé had married another, leaving Olivia with nothing but a one-way ticket to a town where she knew not a soul. The platform bustled with activity as passengers disembarked, eager to escape the confines of the train after days of travel. Olivia stood frozen, her chestnut hair escaping its pins as the wind kicked up around her. What was she to do now? Return to Boston in shame? The very thought made her stomach twist with dread. Her parents had made it abundantly clear that they would not welcome back a daughter who had defied their wishes to marry the banker's son. Lost in her thoughts, Olivia failed to notice the loose latch on her suitcase until it was too late. The worn leather case sprang open, spilling her meager possessions across the wooden platform. A gasp escaped her lips as she watched her clothes, books, and treasured keepsakes scatter in the dirt. "Oh no," she whispered, dropping to her knees, desperately gathering her belongings as people stepped around her, some offering sympathetic glances while others simply ignored her plight. A shadow fell over her, and Olivia looked up to see a tall figure silhouetted against the bright Colorado sun. Broad-shouldered and lean-hipped, the man knelt beside her without a word, his calloused hands carefully retrieving her possessions from the dusty planks of the platform. "This isn't how I imagined starting my new life," Olivia said, attempting a smile as she reached for a lace handkerchief that had fluttered dangerously close to the edge of the platform. "New beginnings rarely go according to plan, madam," the stranger replied, his voice deep and honeyed with a slight Western drawl. As he turned to face her, Olivia found herself looking into the most striking blue eyes she had ever seen, set in a sun-bronzed face beneath a well-worn Stetson hat. "Owen Parker," he introduced himself, gathering up the last of her scattered belongings, a small leather-bound journal that had fallen open to reveal her neat handwriting. He carefully closed it without reading the contents and handed it back to her. "Cattle rancher. An occasional rescuer of wayward possessions. Olivia Prescott," she replied, accepting her journal with gratitude, "and apparently the owner of a defective suitcase." Owen smiled, the expression transforming his weathered face. He couldn't be much older than 26, Olivia guessed, though the sun had etched fine lines around his eyes, suggesting he spent most of his days outdoors. "Let me help you with that," he offered, producing a length of sturdy twine from his pocket. With deft movements, he secured her suitcase, his fingers working the knots with practiced ease. "This should hold until you can get it properly repaired." "Thank you, Mr. Parker. I'm afraid I've caused quite a scene." Olivia brushed dust from her traveling skirt, acutely aware of how disheveled she must appear after days on the train. No harm done. Owen hesitated, seeming to debate his next words. "If you don't mind my asking, Miss Prescott, are you meeting someone in Silver Creek?" "It's not often we get newcomers, especially ladies traveling alone." Olivia felt heat rise to her cheeks. "I was meant to be meeting my former fiancé, she corrected, the words bitter on her tongue. "It seems he found someone else while I was making arrangements to join him." Owen's expression darkened. "That's no way to treat a lady. I'm sorry to hear it." "Yes, well." Olivia straightened her shoulders, determined not to show how deeply the betrayal had wounded her. "I suppose I should inquire about accommodations. Is there a respectable boarding house in town?" "Mrs. Holloway runs a place for ladies on Maple Street. It's clean and fair-priced." Owen paused. "But if you don't mind my saying so, jobs for single women are scarce in these parts, unless you're looking to work in the saloon." I assure you, Mr. Parker, I have no intention of becoming a saloon girl, Olivia replied, her tone sharper than intended. I'm a trained schoolteacher. A smile tugged at the corner of Owen's mouth. As it happens, Miss Prescott, Silver Creek has been without a teacher since Miss Abernathy eloped with the blacksmith last spring. The school's been sitting empty for months. Hope flickered in Olivia's chest. Are you certain? Who would I speak with about the position? Mayor Thornton handles town affairs. His office is just down the main street. Owen glanced at her suitcase. May I escort you to Mrs. Holloway's first? That case looks heavy, even with my makeshift repairs. Olivia hesitated only briefly before nodding. In Boston, accepting help from a stranger, especially a man, would have been unthinkable. But this wasn't Boston, and she was alone in an unfamiliar town with no prospects and dwindling funds. That would be most kind, Mr. Parker. As they walked away from the station, Owen carrying her suitcase with ease, Olivia caught him studying her profile. Something amiss, Mr. Parker? Not at all, he replied. I was just thinking that your former fiancé must be the biggest fool in the Colorado Territory. Olivia felt a blush creep up her neck but kept her gaze fixed ahead. Or perhaps he simply recognized we weren't suited after all. Perhaps, Owen agreed, though his tone suggested otherwise. Still, a man who'd break his promise to a lady like you, he stopped himself, seeming to realize he was speaking too freely. Forgive me, it's not my place to comment. They walked in companionable silence through the main street of Silver Creek. The town was larger than Olivia had expected, with wooden buildings lining both sides of a wide dirt road. A general store, a bank, a doctor's office, and several saloons formed the heart of the community. People nodded greetings to Owen as they passed, eyeing Olivia with undisguised curiosity. News travels fast in small towns, Owen explained, noting her discomfort under the scrutiny. By supper time, everyone will know there's a new lady in Silver Creek. Wonderful, Olivia murmured, adjusting her bonnet. Owen chuckled. Don't worry, they're good people mostly. Just starved for excitement. They turned onto Maple Street, where a neat two-story house sat back from the road, surrounded by a picket fence. A sign above the gate read Holloway Boarding House for Respectable Ladies. Here we are, Owen said, opening the gate for her. Mrs. Holloway is strict but fair. She'll look after you. Olivia took her suitcase from him, their fingers brushing momentarily. Thank you for your kindness, Mr. Parker. I'm not sure what I would have done without your assistance. It was my pleasure, Miss Prescott. He tipped his hat. If you need anything at all while you're getting settled, my ranch is just 3 miles north of town. Anyone can point you in the right direction. As Olivia watched him walk away, his tall figure cutting a striking silhouette against the afternoon sun, she felt something stir within her, a sense that perhaps coming to Silver Creek hadn't been a mistake after all. Mrs. Holloway proved to be exactly as Owen had described, a stern-faced widow in her 50s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense manner. She showed Olivia to a small but clean room on the second floor, explaining the house rules in a clipped tone that brooked no argument. Breakfast at 6, dinner at noon, supper at 6 in the evening, no gentlemen callers in rooms, curfew at 9 o'clock, no exceptions. She fixed Olivia with a penetrating stare. I understand you're seeking the teaching position. Yes, madam. I was trained at the normal school in Boston. Mrs. Holloway nodded approvingly. Education is important. The children here need structure, too many of them running wild since Miss Abernathy left. She hesitated, then added more gently, Mayor Thornton will be at the town meeting tonight, 7 o'clock at the church. You should attend if you want the position. Olivia unpacked her few belongings, hanging her dresses carefully in the small wardrobe and placing her books on the bedside table. The room was sparsely furnished but comfortable, with a narrow bed, a washstand, and a rocking chair near the window that overlooked the street. As she sat in the chair, watching the comings and goings of Silver Creek, Olivia opened her journal and began to write. Today marks a new chapter. I arrived in Silver Creek to find myself abandoned, yet strangely, I feel a sense of possibility I never experienced in Boston. Perhaps it is the openness of the land, or perhaps it is the kindness of a stranger with blue eyes who gathered my scattered possessions, and in doing so, helped me gather my courage as well. The town meeting that evening was held in the small white church at the end of Main Street. Olivia arrived early, her palms damp with nervousness as she smoothed down her best dress, a deep blue wool that complemented her fair complexion and brought out the flecks of gold in her brown eyes. The church filled quickly with townspeople, all turning to stare openly at the newcomer in their midst. Olivia sat straight-backed in a pew near the front, determined to make a good impression. She was surprised when Owen Parker slid into the seat beside her, having exchanged his dusty work clothes for a clean shirt and vest. "Evening, Miss Prescott. Settling in all right?" "Yes, thank you," she replied, acutely aware of the curious glances now directed at both of them. "Mrs. Holloway has been most accommodating. Glad to hear it." Owen nodded toward the front of the church where a portly man with impressive side whiskers was calling the meeting to order. "That's Mayor Thornton. After the meeting would be a good time to approach him about the teaching position." The meeting covered various town matters: repairs needed for the bridge over Silver Creek, complaints about cattle wandering onto town property, at which point several people glanced meaningfully at Owen, and discussions about the upcoming Harvest Festival. Finally, Mayor Thornton addressed the vacant teaching position. "As you all know, we've been without a teacher since spring. With harvest ending soon, it's high time we got the young'uns back to their learning. The town council has set aside funds for a teacher's salary, but finding someone qualified who's willing to come to Silver Creek has proven difficult." Olivia felt Owen nudge her gently. Taking a deep breath, she stood, drawing every eye in the room. "Mr. Mayor, if I may introduce myself. I'm Olivia Prescott, recently arrived from Boston. I'm a qualified teacher with experience in both primary and secondary education." Mayor Thornton blinked in surprise, clearly not expecting a solution to appear so fortuitously. "Well now, Miss Prescott, that is indeed fortunate timing. Do you have references?" "I do, sir. I brought letters from the headmaster at the Boston Normal School and from the family whose children I tutored for the past 3 years. Olivia reached into her reticule and withdrew the carefully preserved documents. The mayor examined the letters, his bushy eyebrows rising as he read. "Most impressive, Miss Prescott. Most impressive indeed." He looked up at the assembled townspeople. "I believe we may have found our new teacher, folks, unless there are any objections." A woman in the back row stood, her expression pinched. "I think we should know why a Boston lady has come all the way to Silver Creek. Seems mighty convenient if you ask me." Olivia felt her cheeks flush, but before she could respond, Owen rose to his feet beside her. "Miss Prescott came to Silver Creek for personal reasons that are her own business, Mrs. Davis. What matters is that she's qualified and willing to teach our children. I'd say that's cause for gratitude, not suspicion." The woman, Mrs. Davis, looked ready to argue further, but Mayor Thornton intervened. "Owen's right. We've been praying for a teacher and here one is. I say we vote on it now. All in favor of hiring Miss Prescott as our new schoolteacher, say aye." A chorus of ayes filled the church, with only a few dissenters. Mayor Thornton beamed at Olivia. "Well, Miss Prescott, it seems you've got yourself a job. School term starts Monday next. The schoolhouse needs a good cleaning, but the town will see to that." Relief washed over Olivia. She had secured lodging and employment in a single day, far more than she had dared hope for when she'd stepped off the train that morning. As the meeting dispersed, several parents approached to introduce themselves and their children. Olivia did her best to remember names and faces, already planning lessons in her mind. "You handled that well," Owen commented as the crowd thinned. "Mrs. Davis is always suspicious of newcomers, especially pretty ones." Olivia found herself smiling at the casual compliment. "Thank you for speaking up for me. It seems I'm already in your debt twice over, Mr. Parker." "No debt between neighbors," he replied easily. "Though I wouldn't say no to a cup of coffee if you've a mind to join me at the cafe across the street. They serve pie that rivals my mother's, and that's saying something." The propriety ingrained in Olivia since childhood warred briefly with her desire for company. In Boston, an unmarried lady would never dine alone with a gentleman she'd just met. But this wasn't Boston, and Owen Parker had proven himself a gentleman in the ways that truly mattered. "I would like that," she decided, falling into step beside him as they left the church. The cafe was small but welcoming, with checked tablecloths and kerosene lamps casting a warm glow over the half-dozen tables. The owner, a plump woman named Mrs. Jensen, brought them coffee and generous slices of apple pie without being asked. "On the house," she insisted, "to welcome our new teacher and thank Owen for finally bringing a lady friend to my establishment." "Oh, we're not," Olivia began, but Mrs. Jensen had already bustled away, leaving her sentence hanging in the air. Owen's eyes crinkled with amusement. "Don't mind her. Like I said, small towns and excitement. I'm beginning to understand." Olivia sipped her coffee, finding it surprisingly good. "Tell me about Silver Creek, Mr. Parker. What should I know that isn't immediately apparent?" Over the next hour, Owen painted a vivid picture of the community, the cattle ranchers and farmers who formed its backbone, the mining operations in the hills that had brought the first settlers, the diverse backgrounds of the townspeople who had come seeking a new start. "Much like yourself," he observed, watching her over the rim of his coffee cup. "Yes, though my journey was perhaps less planned than most," Olivia admitted. "I'm still not entirely certain what possessed me to board that train after receiving Charles's telegram. Pride, perhaps. Or simply the refusal to accept that my life should be dictated by another's fickleness." "Sounds like courage to me," Owen replied, his gaze direct and admiring. "It takes grit to leave everything familiar behind and face the unknown." "Or foolishness," Olivia said with a self-deprecating smile. "I knew nothing of Colorado beyond what I'd read in books. And now that you're here, what do you think of our little corner of the territory?" Olivia considered the question seriously. "It's beautiful, in a wild way that's quite different from New England. The mountains on the horizon, the vastness of the sky." She paused. "And the people have been kinder than I had any right to expect." "Some kinder than others," Owen said wryly, clearly thinking of Mrs. Davis. "Every community has its skeptics. I'll win her over eventually." "I don't doubt it." There was something in Owen's voice that made Olivia look up sharply. The intensity in his blue eyes caused her breath to catch. "You're not what I expected to find at the train station today, Miss Prescott. Nor did I expect to have my suitcase rescued by a cattle rancher, Mr. Parker." She smiled, trying to lighten the moment that suddenly seemed charged with possibility. The clock on the wall chimed 8:30, breaking the spell. Olivia started, realizing how late it had grown. "I should return to the boarding house. Mrs. Holloway was quite clear about her curfew." Owen insisted on walking her back, though the distance was short. At the gate of the boarding house, Olivia turned to thank him for the evening. "It was my pleasure," he said, his hat in his hands. "I hope you'll allow me to show you around the area sometime. There's a waterfall up in the foothills that's worth seeing." "I would like that very much," Olivia replied, surprising herself with how much she meant it. Owen smiled, replacing his hat. "Get some rest, Miss Prescott. Teaching the youth of Silver Creek will require all your Boston fortitude." As she watched him walk away for the second time that day, Olivia couldn't help but feel that something significant had shifted in her world, something that had nothing to do with geography, and everything to do with the tall rancher with kind eyes who had gathered her scattered possessions, and perhaps begun gathering pieces of her heart as well. The following week passed in a flurry of activity as Olivia prepared for the start of the school term. The schoolhouse, a simple one-room building at the edge of town, had indeed needed cleaning. Years of dust had settled on every surface, and mice had made homes in the cupboards. But the town had rallied, with mothers organizing a cleaning party and fathers repairing broken windows and wobbly desks. Owen had arrived on the second day of cleaning, bringing lumber to fix the sagging front steps and a bookshelf he'd crafted himself. "Thought you might need somewhere proper to keep your teaching materials," he'd explained, carrying the sturdy pine shelf into the schoolhouse as if it weighed nothing. Olivia had been touched by the gesture. "It's perfect, Mr. Parker. Thank you." "Owen," he'd corrected her, setting the shelf against the wall near her desk. "I think we've moved beyond formalities, don't you?" "Owen," she'd repeated, liking the way his name felt on her lips. "Then you must call me Olivia." Now, as Monday morning dawned bright and clear, Olivia stood before her classroom of 27 students ranging in age from 6 to 16. The younger children sat wide-eyed in the front rows, while the older boys lounged in the back, clearly skeptical of the Eastern lady who was to be their teacher. "Good morning," Olivia began, her voice steady despite her nerves. "I am Miss Prescott, and I'm very pleased to be your teacher. We have much to learn together this year." A boy of about 14 raised his hand. "Miss Prescott, my pa says you're running from something in Boston. Is that true?" Olivia maintained her composure, though inwardly she winced at the bluntness of the question. "I'm not running from anything, young man. I'm running towards something, the opportunity to teach bright minds like yours. Now, would you kindly tell me your name?" "James Thornton, madam, the mayor's son." "Well, Mr. Thornton, since you're so eager to speak, perhaps you'd like to come to the board and demonstrate your knowledge of multiplication tables." The boy's swagger faltered slightly, but he rose and made his way to the front. The other students watched with interest as Olivia handed him a piece of chalk. "The 8 times table, if you please." By the end of the day, Olivia had established herself as firm but fair, winning over most of her students with her genuine interest in their progress and her refusal to be intimidated by the older boys' testing of boundaries. She dismissed the class with assignments for the next day and began tidying the room, her mind already planning improvements to the curriculum. A knock at the open door made her look up. Owen stood in the doorway, his hat in his hands, looking somewhat out of place in the schoolroom. "Thought you might want a ride home. First day of teaching can be exhausting." Olivia smiled, touched by his thoughtfulness. "That's very kind of you, Owen. I confess I hadn't realized how tiring it would be to corral 27 young minds. How'd it go?" he asked, helping her gather her books and papers. "Better than I feared, worse than I hoped," she admitted with a laugh. "Young James Thornton seems determined to challenge my authority at every turn." Owen grimaced. "The mayor spoils that boy something terrible since his mother passed. He needs a firm hand." "And he shall have it," Olivia assured him, locking the schoolhouse door behind them. By Christmas, he'll be reciting Shakespeare whether he likes it or not. Outside, a handsome bay horse was hitched to a small buggy. Owen helped Olivia up, his hands strong and sure at her waist. The brief contact sent a flutter through her stomach that she did her best to ignore. As they drove through town, people waved and called greetings. Olivia was surprised at how quickly she was being accepted into the community. "Everyone seems so friendly," she remarked. "Small towns," Owen shrugged. "We look after our own." "And am I one of your own now?" Olivia asked, only half teasing. Owen glanced at her, his expression serious. "I'd like to think so. Silver Creek could use more folks like you, educated, principled." "You make me sound terribly dull," Olivia protested. Owen laughed, the sound rich and warm in the late afternoon air. "Dull is the last word I'd use to describe you, Olivia Prescott." Instead of taking her directly to the boarding house, Owen drove to the outskirts of town where the land opened up to reveal rolling hills, and the distant mountains bathed in golden sunlight. "I thought you might like to see a bit more of the countryside," he explained as Olivia gazed at the spectacular view. "This is my favorite spot to watch the sunset." They sat in companionable silence as the sun dipped lower, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Owen pointed out landmarks: the distant peak of Mount Silverhorn, the winding path of the creek that gave the town its name, and just visible on the northern horizon, the spread of his ranch. "It's beautiful," Olivia breathed, awed by the vastness of the landscape. "So different from Boston." "Do you miss it? The city, I mean." Olivia considered the question seriously. "I miss certain things: the libraries, the concerts, the bustle of activity. But there's a freedom here that Boston lacks. Room to breathe, to become whoever you wish to be." "And who do you wish to be, Olivia?" Owen asked softly. The question caught her off guard. In Boston, her path had been predetermined: a suitable marriage, a respectable household, children raised according to society's expectations. Coming to Silver Creek had shattered that future, leaving her adrift but also strangely liberated. "I'm not entirely sure yet," she admitted. "But for now, being the best teacher I can be seems like a worthy goal." Owen nodded, seeming to understand the complexity behind her simple answer. "Well, Silver Creek is lucky to have you, whatever you decide to become." As they returned to town in the gathering dusk, Olivia found herself studying Owen's profile, struck by the ease she felt in his company despite their short acquaintance. There was something solid and reassuring about him, a steadiness that contrasted sharply with Charles's glib charm and empty promises. At the boarding house gate, Owen helped her down from the buggy, his hands lingering perhaps a moment longer than necessary. "Thank you for the tour," Olivia said, suddenly shy. "My pleasure. I was thinking, if you're not too busy with school preparations, perhaps you might join me for a picnic on Saturday. I could show you that waterfall I mentioned." Olivia hesitated only briefly. Propriety dictated she should decline an unchaperoned outing with a man she barely knew. But Silver Creek operated by different rules than Boston, and Owen had proven himself a gentleman in every interaction. "I would like that very much," she decided, rewarded by the smile that lit up his face. "I'll call for you at 10 then. Wear sturdy shoes, the path can be a bit rough in places." As Olivia prepared for bed that night, her mind kept returning to Owen Parker. She had come to Silver Creek nursing a broken heart and wounded pride, certain that romance was the furthest thing from her priorities. Yet here she was, anticipating Saturday's outing with a flutter of excitement she hadn't felt even for Charles. "Don't be foolish," she scolded her reflection as she brushed her hair. "You barely know the man." But as she drifted off to sleep, Olivia couldn't help but think that perhaps she knew Owen Parker better after 3 days than she had known Charles Hamilton after 3 years of courtship. And perhaps that was worth exploring, whatever complications might arise. Saturday dawned clear and bright, with just enough autumn crispness in the air to make the prospect of a hike appealing. Olivia dressed carefully in her most practical skirt, a brown wool that wouldn't show dirt, and a cream-colored shirtwaist with her sturdiest boots. She pinned her hair in a simple style that wouldn't come loose during their excursion. Mrs. Holloway eyed her preparations with thinly veiled disapproval. "A picnic with Mr. Parker, is it? Awful soon to be keeping company with a gentleman, Miss Prescott." "We're merely friends, Mrs. Holloway," Olivia assured her, though the words felt not quite true even as she spoke them. "Mr. Parker is kindly showing me the local sights," the older woman harumphed. "Owen Parker is a good man, make no mistake, one of the finest in these parts, but he's had his share of heartache and folks around here are protective of him." Olivia paused in arranging her hat. "Heartache?" Mrs. Holloway seemed to debate whether to continue before sighing heavily. "It's no secret. His wife died in childbirth 5 years ago, lost the baby too. He threw himself into building that ranch of his, barely came to town for 2 years except for supplies." The news settled heavily in Olivia's chest. "I had no idea he was widowed. He doesn't speak of it much, but he's different lately, since you arrived." Mrs. Holloway fixed Olivia with a penetrating stare. "Just mind you don't toy with him if you're planning to hightail it back east at the first opportunity." "I have no plans to return to Boston," Olivia said firmly, "and I would never intentionally hurt anyone, Mrs. Holloway." The landlady's expression softened slightly. "No, I don't suppose you would. You seem a decent sort. Just be careful with him. Hearts don't always mend properly the second time around." Owen arrived precisely at 10, driving the same buggy but dressed more casually in denims and a checkered shirt with a leather vest. He had a large picnic basket and a rolled blanket secured behind the seat. "You look perfect for hiking," he approved, helping Olivia into the buggy as they drove out of town. Olivia found herself studying Owen with new understanding. Now that she knew about his loss, she could see traces of old sorrow in the fine lines around his eyes and the occasional shadow that passed over his features when he thought she wasn't looking. "Mrs. Holloway mentioned that you're a widower," she said gently, when they had left the town behind. "I'm very sorry for your loss." Owen's hands tightened on the reins briefly before relaxing. "Thank you. It was a long time ago now," he glanced at her. "I hope that doesn't change anything about today." "Of course not," Olivia assured him. I wanted you to know that I know, so you needn't avoid the subject if it arises." Owen nodded, seeming relieved. "Her name was Sarah. We were married just a year when she died. She would have liked you, I think." The simple statement touched Olivia deeply. "I'm sure I would have liked her as well." The conversation shifted to lighter topics as they traveled further into the foothills. Owen pointed out wildlife, a family of deer grazing in a meadow, an eagle soaring overhead, and shared stories about the early days of Silver Creek, when his father had first established their ranch. "He came out here with nothing but a wagon, 4 cows, and more determination than sense, according to my mother," Owen said, smiling at the memory. "She followed 6 months later, bringing me along as a 2-year-old. Said she'd never seen a man so happy as when Pa spotted us coming up that trail." "They sound wonderful," Olivia said, thinking of her own parents whose approval had always seemed conditional on proper behavior and advantageous connections. "They were. They taught me that love is a choice you make every day, not just when it's easy." Owen looked at her directly. "I think that's something a lot of folks never learn." The trail eventually became too narrow for the buggy, so Owen secured the horse in a shady spot with access to water. He helped Olivia down, then retrieved the picnic basket and blanket. "It's about a half-mile walk from here," he explained, offering his arm. "The path gets steep in places. The trail wound through pine forest, the ground carpeted with needles that release their sharp, clean scent with each step." Olivia found herself grateful for Owen's steady presence as they navigated rocky sections and crossed a small stream on stepping stones. "Almost there," Owen assured her as they climbed a particularly steep section. "Trust me, it's worth the effort." As they crested the final rise, Olivia gasped. Before them, a waterfall cascaded down a rocky cliff face into a clear pool below. Sunlight caught the spray, creating a rainbow that arched across the tumbling water. The surrounding cliffs were dotted with hardy wildflowers and shrubs that had found purchase in the crevices. "Oh, Owen," she breathed, momentarily forgetting formality in her delight. "It's magnificent." Pride showed clearly on his face. "Not many folks know about this spot. My father showed it to me when I was a boy, said it was where he proposed to my mother." The significance of his bringing her here wasn't lost on Olivia, though she pretended not to notice the implication. It was far too soon for such thoughts, no matter how attracted she might be to the quiet rancher. Owen spread the blanket on a grassy spot overlooking the pool and unpacked the picnic basket. Mrs. Jensen from the cafe had prepared a feast: fried chicken, potato salad, fresh bread, apple tarts, and a jug of lemonade. As they ate, Owen told stories of growing up in the area, learning to ride almost before he could walk, getting lost in the woods as a boy and being found by a friendly trapper, his first cattle drive at 14. "You've lived such an adventurous life," Olivia remarked. "My childhood in comparison seems terribly sheltered." "Tell me about it anyway," Owen encouraged. "I've never been further east than Kansas City." Olivia shared memories of Boston winters skating on the frozen pond in the Common, summers at her grandparents' home on Cape Cod, the excitement of her first teaching position at a private girls' school. "And your family, do they write to you?" Owen asked. Olivia's expression clouded. "Not yet. My parents didn't approve of my coming west. They had other plans for me, namely, marriage to the son of my father's business associate. When I refused and accepted Charles's proposal instead, they were displeased. And now that Charles has proven himself unworthy, I imagine they would say I told you so if given the chance," Olivia admitted. "But I've written to them, letting them know I'm safe and employed. Perhaps in time they'll forgive what they see as my willfulness." Owen's expression darkened. "Seems to me they're the ones who should be asking forgiveness. Parents should want their children's happiness above all else." The simple sentiment, so at odds with the conditional love she'd grown up with, brought unexpected tears to Olivia's eyes. She turned away, blinking rapidly. "I've upset you," Owen said, his voice gentle. "I'm sorry." "No," Olivia managed, composing herself. "It's just, you've reminded me that perhaps what I've always thought of as normal isn't necessarily right." Owen reached across the blanket and took her hand, his calloused palm warm against her skin. "For what it's worth, I think you're doing just fine making your own decisions." The moment stretched between them, filled with unspoken possibilities. Then Owen released her hand and stood, offering to show her a path that led behind the waterfall. The afternoon passed in pleasant exploration of the area. Owen was an attentive guide, always ready with a steadying hand when the terrain grew difficult, but never presuming or overprotective. By the time they packed up to return to the buggy, Olivia felt a closeness to him that belied their short acquaintance. As they drove back toward town, the setting sun painting the landscape in gold and amber, Owen glanced at her. "I hope you enjoyed today." "More than I can say," Olivia replied honestly. Thank you for sharing such a special place with me." Owen's smile held a hint of vulnerability that touched her heart. "I haven't been up there since Sarah died. Didn't see the point, I guess. But today, it felt right to go back." The simple admission of how much their outing had meant to him left Olivia momentarily speechless. "I'm honored," she finally said, her voice soft. When they reached the boarding house, dusk was falling. Owen helped Olivia down from the buggy, his hands strong and sure at her waist. For a moment he didn't step back, his face close to hers in the gathering darkness. "Olivia," he began, his voice low. The front door of the boarding house opened, spilling lamplight onto the porch as Mrs. Holloway appeared. "Miss Prescott, is that you?" Owen stepped back, the moment broken. "Evening, Mrs. Holloway," he called, his voice returning to its normal timbre. "Just bringing Miss Prescott home from our outing." "Indeed," the landlady replied, her tone making clear her opinion of said outing. "Supper's been keeping warm for you, Miss Prescott." "Thank you, Mrs. Holloway." "I'll be right in." Olivia turned back to Owen. "Thank you again for today. It was wonderful. Perhaps we could do it again sometime," he suggested, his eyes seeking confirmation in hers. "I'd like that very much." As Olivia climbed the porch steps, she felt Mrs. Holloway's assessing gaze. "Have a pleasant day, did you?" "Very pleasant," Olivia confirmed, unable to keep the smile from her face. The landlady shook her head, though there was a hint of amusement in her expression. "That man hasn't looked at a woman the way he looks at you in 5 years, Miss Prescott." "I hope you know what you're doing." "I haven't the faintest idea what I'm doing," Olivia admitted once they were inside. "But I think I might be falling in love with him." Mrs. Holloway's expression softened. "Well, there are worse fates than loving a good man like Owen Parker. Just remember what I said about hearts not always mending properly the second time around. His included." The warning stayed with Olivia as she prepared for bed that night. Owen had already suffered one devastating loss. Could she promise not to add to that pain? She, who had come to Silver Creek running from her own heartbreak. Yet as she drifted off to sleep, Olivia couldn't help but feel that perhaps they had found each other precisely because they both understood the risk of opening one's heart again, and the courage it required to do so anyway. The weeks that followed fell into a pleasant rhythm. Olivia threw herself into teaching, gradually winning over even the most reluctant students with her genuine interest in their progress and her willingness to adapt her Eastern methods to better suit Western realities. James Thornton, in particular, had transformed from her biggest challenge to one of her most enthusiastic pupils after she discovered his talent for mathematics and encouraged him accordingly. Owen became a regular visitor to the schoolhouse, often stopping by after classes ended to walk Olivia back to the boarding house. Sometimes he brought small gifts, a particularly beautiful pine cone, a book of poetry he'd found in the general store, wildflowers he'd gathered on his rides. Mrs. Holloway had relaxed her rules somewhat, allowing Owen to call on Olivia in the boarding house parlor in the evenings. They would sit by the fire, discussing books or local news while Mrs. Holloway pretended to knit nearby, her role as chaperone taken very seriously despite her growing approval of their courtship. For that was what it had become, though neither had put a name to it yet. The whole town seemed to have accepted them as a couple, with Mrs. Jensen always seating them at their table when they took Sunday dinner at the cafe, and Mayor Thornton making pointed comments about how a school teacher really ought to have a proper home rather than a boarding house room. It was on a crisp November afternoon, with the first hint of winter in the air, that Olivia received a letter that would test the foundations of her new life. She was at her desk, grading arithmetic papers while the students worked on their history assignment, when a knock at the schoolhouse door interrupted the quiet scratching of pencils. The postmaster, Mr. Wilkins, stood there with an envelope in hand. "Special delivery for you, Miss Prescott," he announced, unable to keep the curiosity from his voice. Letters from the East were always a source of interest in Silver Creek. All the way from Boston, Massachusetts. Olivia's heart skipped as she recognized her mother's precise handwriting. "Thank you, Mr. Wilkins." The students watched with undisguised interest as she placed the letter in her desk drawer, determined not to read it until she was alone. "Back to your studies, please. Those essays on the Louisiana Purchase won't write themselves." When the last student had finally departed for the day, Olivia retrieved the letter with trembling hands. 3 months had passed since she'd written to her parents, informing them of her situation and her decision to remain in Colorado. Their silence had been painful but not unexpected. The letter was thick, suggesting a lengthy missive. Olivia broke the seal and began to read. "My dearest daughter, it is with both relief and lingering concern that I write to you after these many weeks of silence. Your father has only recently permitted me to respond to your letter, his anger at your decision having finally cooled to mere disapproval. I must inform you that circumstances here have changed dramatically. Charles Hamilton has revealed himself to be not merely a scoundrel in matters of the heart, but a criminal as well. He has absconded with significant funds from your father's company, funds that were entrusted to him for investment. The scandal has rocked Boston society, and your father's business stands on precarious ground. In light of these developments, your decision to travel west appears almost providential, though I would never admit as much to your father. You have escaped both a disastrous marriage and a social scandal of the highest order. However, my purpose in writing is not merely to share this news, but to extend an olive branch. Your father, though he would not say so himself, recognizes that your independence may have saved you from ruin. He has authorized me to inform you that should you wish to return to Boston, your place in our home awaits you. Furthermore, the daughter of his oldest friend, Margaret Lowell, has recently been widowed and seeks a companion to accompany her on an extended tour of Europe. She has specifically requested you, remembering your friendship from school days. This opportunity would provide both financial security and a chance to put recent unpleasantness behind you. Margaret plans to depart after the new year and would require your answer by Christmas at the latest. I do not know what life you have built for yourself in this Silver Creek, but I implore you to consider this chance to return to civilization and the society for which you were raised. Whatever temporary situation you have found there cannot compare to the prospects that await you here. Your loving mother, Olivia Prescott. P.S. Your father has enclosed a bank draft sufficient for your return journey." Olivia set the letter down, her mind reeling. Charles, a thief as well as a faithless fiancé, her parents, willing to welcome her back after months of silence. And most troubling of all, the opportunity to travel Europe, a dream she had cherished since childhood. 6 months ago, she would have seized this chance without hesitation. But now there was a one-room schoolhouse full of children who depended on her. There was a community that had welcomed her despite her outsider status. And there was Owen dear, steady Owen with his quiet strength and the love that showed in his eyes even though he had not yet spoken the words. Olivia was still sitting at her desk, lost in thought when the door opened and Owen himself appeared. "Thought you might like company walking home," he began, then stopped when he saw her expression. "What's wrong?" Wordlessly, Olivia handed him the letter. Owen read it carefully, his face revealing nothing until he reached the end. Then he looked up, his blue eyes troubled. "You're considering it," he said. "It wasn't a question." "I don't know," Olivia admitted. It's all so sudden. Owen set the letter down gently. Europe is a long way from Colorado. Yes. And Boston society is a far cry from Silver Creek. Yes. Olivia agreed again, her heart constricting at the carefully neutral tone of his voice. Owen took a deep breath. Olivia, I had planned to do this differently with dinner at the hotel and maybe a ride up to the waterfall again. But it seems time may be shorter than I thought. He reached into his pocket and withdrew a small box. I've been carrying this around for 2 weeks, waiting for the right moment. Olivia's breath caught as he opened the box to reveal a delicate gold ring with a small but perfect diamond. Owen, I love you, Olivia Prescott, he said simply. I think I've loved you since the moment you knelt in the dust of that train platform, trying to gather up your scattered belongings with more dignity than most folks manage in a lifetime of trying. Tears filled Olivia's eyes. Owen, he held up a hand to stop her. I'm not asking for your answer now. This letter changes things. You have options I didn't know about, decisions to make. I want you to be sure. He closed the box and placed it on her desk. Keep this. Think about what you truly want. If it's Europe and Boston society, I'll understand. But if there's any chance that what you want is a life here, a life with me, then I'll be waiting. Before Olivia could respond, Owen leaned down and kissed her gently on the forehead. Take your time, Liv. This is too important to rush. Then he was gone, leaving Olivia alone with a diamond ring, a letter from Boston, and a heart so full it felt like it might burst. That evening, Olivia barely touched her dinner, her mind still spinning with the day's revelations. Mrs. Holloway noticed her distraction, but asked no questions, for which Olivia was grateful. She needed time to sort through her tangled emotions without well-meaning advice. In her room, Olivia placed her mother's letter and Owen's ring box side by side on her small writing desk. They represented such different futures, one filled with grand adventures and social connections, the other with the quiet joys of building a life with a man she had come to love deeply. For that was the truth she could no longer deny, even to herself. She loved Owen Parker with a steadiness and depth that made her feelings for Charles seem like a schoolgirl's infatuation in comparison. Yet Europe called to her with the siren song of ancient cities and artistic wonders she had only read about in books. Teaching had always been her passion, but so had learning, experiencing, growing. Could she find those things in Silver Creek, or would she eventually come to resent the limitations of small-town life? Olivia opened her journal and began to write, hoping the act of putting her thoughts on paper might bring clarity. She wrote late into the night, filling pages with her conflicted feelings, her hopes, her fears. When sleep finally claimed her, she had reached no decision. The next morning, Saturday, Olivia awoke with a sense of purpose. She could not make this decision alone. She needed to speak honestly with Owen about their potential future together. After a quick breakfast, she set out for Owen's ranch. Mrs. Holloway raised her eyebrows at Olivia's announced destination, but merely commented, "Be back before dark. Looks like snow coming." Olivia borrowed a horse from the livery stable, assuring the skeptical owner that yes, she could ride, having learned as a girl during summers on Cape Cod. The 3-mile journey to the Parker Ranch gave her time to organize her thoughts and steel her courage. The ranch itself was larger than Olivia had expected, a sprawling main house built of sturdy logs, several outbuildings, corrals, and a large barn. Fields stretched in all directions, dotted with cattle grazing on the last of the autumn grass. As Olivia approached, a ranch hand spotted her and called out to someone in the barn. Moments later, Owen emerged, wiping his hands on a cloth. His expression registered surprise, then concern as he hurried to help her dismount. "Olivia, is everything all right? I needed to talk to you," she explained, suddenly nervous now that she was actually here. "I hope I'm not interrupting anything important." "Nothing that can't wait," Owen assured her, leading her horse to a hitching post. "Come inside. It's getting cold out here." The interior of the ranch house was warm and inviting, with polished wooden floors covered by colorful rugs, comfortable furniture, and a stone fireplace that dominated one wall of the main room. Photographs and paintings decorated the walls, giving glimpses of the Parker family history. "Can I get you something? Coffee? Tea?" Owen offered, taking her coat. "Tea would be lovely, thank you." While Owen busied himself in the kitchen, Olivia found herself drawn to the photographs on the mantelpiece. One in particular caught her eye, a wedding portrait of a younger Owen standing beside a pretty blonde woman with a gentle smile. Sarah, Olivia realized, feeling a pang of something like kinship with the woman who had been loved by the same man. "That was taken the day after our wedding," Owen said quietly, returning with 2 steaming cups. "The photographer couldn't make it to the actual ceremony." "She was beautiful," Olivia said sincerely. "She was." Owen handed Olivia her tea and gestured for her to sit on the sofa near the fire. "But I imagine you didn't ride all the way out here to talk about Sarah." "No." Olivia took a deep breath. "I came because I realized that I can't make this decision without knowing more about what a future with you might look like." Owen nodded slowly. "That seems fair. What do you want to know?" "Everything," Olivia admitted with a small laugh. "But perhaps we could start with whether you've thought about what our life together would be. Would I continue teaching? Would I live here at the ranch? Would you want children?" The direct questions didn't seem to faze Owen. "I've thought about little else these past weeks," he admitted. "Yes, I'd want you to continue teaching if that's what makes you happy. As for living arrangements, this house was built for a family. It's been too empty for too long." He paused, his gaze steady on hers. "And yes, I'd like children. I always have, but I'd understand if that's not what you want." "It is," Olivia said softly. "I've always wanted a family of my own." She hesitated, then asked the question that had been weighing on her mind. "Owen, would you resent me if I sometimes wished for more than Silver Creek can offer? If I wanted to see other places, experience different things?" Understanding dawned in Owen's eyes. "Ah, the European tour." "Not just that," Olivia clarified. "But yes, I've always dreamed of seeing the great cities and artworks I've only read about. And I worry that if I stay, I might eventually come to regret the opportunities I've passed up." Owen set his cup down and moved to sit beside her on the sofa, taking her hands in his. "Olivia, you think I'd expect you to never leave Silver Creek again if you married me? That's not the kind of life I want for either of us." "What do you mean?" "I mean that cattle ranches don't run themselves 12 months a year, it's true. But there are seasons when things are quieter. Times when a man and his wife might take a trip to Denver, or San Francisco, or yes, even Europe if that's what she dreams of." His thumbs traced gentle circles on the backs of her hands. "I may not be a sophisticated man, but I'm not an ignorant one either. I understand wanting to see the world beyond these mountains." Hope bloomed in Olivia's chest. "You would travel with me," in a heartbeat. Owen's smile was tender. "Though I can't promise I won't embarrass you with my country manners in Paris or London." "You could never embarrass me," Olivia assured him, feeling as though a weight had been lifted from her shoulders. "You're the most honorable man I've ever known." "And you're the most remarkable woman," Owen replied, his voice husky with emotion. "Olivia, I don't want to stand in the way of your dreams. I want to be part of them. Whatever adventures you yearn for, I want to experience them with you. And when we're ready, I want to come home to this place, to build a life and a family together. Tears filled Olivia's eyes at the simple sincerity of his words. "I love you, Owen Parker. I think I have since you promised to never drop my heart the day we met." Owen's brow furrowed in confusion. "Did I say that?" Olivia laughed through her tears. "Not in so many words. But when you gathered my scattered belongings and secured my broken suitcase, it felt like a promise all the same." Understanding dawned in Owen's eyes, followed by tenderness. "Well, it's a promise I intend to keep." He reached for the inside pocket of his vest and produced the ring box. "I believe I left this with you yesterday. Have you had time to consider it?" Olivia extended her left hand, her heart full to bursting. "Yes, my answer is yes, Owen. I want to be your wife." Owen slipped the ring onto her finger, then cupped her face in his hands and kissed her with a passion that left her breathless. When they finally broke apart, his blue eyes were suspiciously bright. "I never thought I'd find this again. After Sarah, I believed that part of my life was over. And I never thought I'd find it at all," Olivia admitted. "Not the real thing. Not this kind of love." They sat together by the fire, making plans for their future as the promised snow began to fall outside, dusting the ranch in pristine white. Olivia would finish the school year, then they would marry in the spring. They would take a wedding trip to San Francisco, and perhaps the following year, when the ranch was secure, a longer journey to Europe. "I should write to my mother," Olivia mused as the afternoon shadows lengthened. "To decline Margaret's offer and share our news." "Will your parents come for the wedding, do you think?" Owen asked. Olivia considered the question. "I'm not sure, but I'll invite them. Perhaps seeing Colorado and meeting you will help them understand why I've chosen this life." As they prepared to leave for town before the snow grew heavier, Olivia paused in the doorway of the ranch house, looking back at the warm, inviting space that would soon be her home. "Owen, thank you for understanding about Europe, for not asking me to choose between my dreams and you." Owen kissed her gently. "I would never ask that of you, Liv. Besides, I'm rather looking forward to seeing the world through your eyes." As they rode back to town, the snow falling around them in gentle flakes, Olivia felt a contentment she had never known before. She had come to Silver Creek broken-hearted and uncertain, her possessions scattered like her plans for the future. Now, just a few months later, she had found not just a new home and purpose, but a love deep enough to last a lifetime. That evening, as Olivia wrote to her mother announcing her engagement and declining the European tour, she included a postscript that she hoped would help her parents understand her decision. "I came to Silver Creek believing I had lost everything that mattered. Instead, I found that life sometimes gives us exactly what we need in the most unexpected places. My suitcase fell open on the train platform the day I arrived, and a kind cowboy gathered my scattered belongings. In doing so, he began gathering the scattered pieces of my heart as well. He has promised never to drop it, and I believe him with every fiber of my being. This is where I belong." The winter passed in a flurry of wedding preparations and teaching duties. Olivia's parents responded to her letter with cautious congratulations and a promise to consider attending the spring wedding. The entire town of Silver Creek embraced the upcoming nuptials with enthusiasm, with the ladies organizing sewing circles to help create Olivia's trousseau and the men offering to expand the schoolhouse to accommodate the growing number of students. Owen proved to be a thoughtful fiancé, visiting the schoolhouse regularly and taking Olivia on drives through the snow-covered countryside whenever weather permitted. They spent Christmas together at the ranch, decorating a pine tree cut from Owen's land and exchanging modest gifts. Owen had crafted a beautiful wooden box for Olivia's teaching supplies, while she had knitted him a warm scarf in shades of blue that matched his eyes. As winter gave way to spring, the wedding plans solidified. They would marry in the Silver Creek Church on the first Saturday in May, with Mayor Thornton's wife organizing the reception at the town hall. Olivia's parents sent word that they would indeed attend, arriving by train 3 days before the ceremony. Olivia met them at the station, her stomach in knots as she watched them disembark. Olivia Prescott, elegant in a traveling suit that spoke of Boston refinement, and William Prescott, stern-faced and assessing as his gaze swept over the modest train platform where his daughter's journey had begun. "Mother, father," Olivia greeted them, stepping forward with more confidence than she felt. "Welcome to Silver Creek." Her mother embraced her warmly while her father offered a stiff nod. "The journey was interminable," he complained. "How you managed it alone is beyond me." "I had motivation," Olivia replied evenly. "I'm so pleased you've come. I can't wait for you to meet Owen." "Yes, this rancher of yours," her father said, his tone making clear his opinion of her choice. "I suppose we shall see what manner of man has captured my daughter's affections." "You shall indeed," came a deep voice from behind Olivia. Owen approached, looking handsomer than ever in his best suit, his hat in his hands. "Mr. and Mrs. Prescott, it's an honor to meet you. I'm Owen Parker." Olivia watched with satisfaction as her parents' expressions shifted, her mother's to pleasant surprise, her father's to grudging reassessment as Owen shook her father's hand firmly and bowed slightly to her mother. "My wagon's just over there," Owen continued. "I'll take your luggage and drive you to the hotel. It's not what you're accustomed to in Boston, I'm sure, but Mrs. Jensen keeps the cleanest rooms in Colorado territory." As Owen efficiently loaded their trunks, Olivia's mother leaned close. "He's quite handsome, dear." "And those manners not at all what I expected." "Owen is full of surprises," Olivia agreed, warmth spreading through her at her mother's approval. The days leading up to the wedding were filled with final preparations and introducing her parents to Silver Creek. Her father, initially skeptical, was grudgingly impressed by the thriving community and the respect Owen commanded among his peers. Her mother, to Olivia's surprise, formed an immediate bond with Mrs. Holloway, the two women discovering a shared interest in quilting. The night before the wedding, as Olivia sat with her mother in the hotel parlor, Olivia Prescott took her daughter's hands. "I owe you an apology, Olivia. Your father and I, we were so certain we knew what was best for you. We never stopped to consider that you might find happiness in a different kind of life." Tears pricked at Olivia's eyes. "Thank you, Mother. That means more than you know. This Owen of yours, he loves you deeply. It's evident in the way he looks at you." Her mother squeezed her hands. "And Silver Creek, while not Boston, has a charm of its own. I can see why you've chosen to make your life here." "I never expected to find such happiness in a place I came to by accident," Olivia admitted. "But from the moment my suitcase fell open on that platform and Owen helped gather my things, something just felt right." Her mother smiled knowingly. "Sometimes the heart recognizes what the mind hasn't yet realized. I felt the same way when I met your father, though he was far more difficult back then than your Owen." The wedding day dawned clear and perfect, with wildflowers blooming across the meadows and the mountains standing crisp against a bright blue sky. The small church was filled to capacity with townsfolk and ranch hands, all dressed in their Sunday best to witness the union of their schoolteacher and the respected rancher. Olivia wore a gown of ivory silk that Mrs. Holloway and the town's ladies had helped her create, with delicate lace at the collar and cuffs. Her chestnut hair was arranged in an elegant style, crowned with a wreath of spring flowers gathered that morning from the meadows near the ranch. As her father walked her down the aisle, Olivia's eyes found Owen waiting for her at the altar. The love shining in his face took her breath away. This was right. This was where she belonged. The ceremony was simple but heartfelt. When the minister asked who gave this woman, William Prescott surprised Olivia by saying in a clear voice, "Her mother and I do, with our blessing and joy." Owen's hands were steady as he placed the gold band on Olivia's finger, his voice deep and sure as he repeated his vows. "I, Owen James Parker, take thee, Olivia Eleanor Prescott, to be my wedded wife, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish, till death do us part." Olivia's voice trembled slightly as she made the same promise, her heart so full she thought it might burst. "With this ring I thee wed," she concluded, sliding a plain gold band onto Owen's finger, a band he had insisted be identical to hers, a symbol of their equal partnership. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," the minister declared. "What God has joined together, let no man put asunder. You may kiss your bride." Owen's kiss was gentle yet filled with promise, and the church erupted in cheers as they turned to face their community as husband and wife. The reception at the town hall was a joyous affair, with tables groaning under the weight of dishes prepared by every household in Silver Creek. There was dancing to fiddle music, toasts offered by the mayor and Olivia's father, who had clearly partaken liberally of the punch. And finally, as the sun began to set, a shower of flower petals as Owen helped Olivia into the wagon that would take them to their first night together as husband and wife. They had decided to spend their wedding night at the ranch before departing the next morning for their honeymoon trip to San Francisco. As they rode through the gathering dusk, Owen's arm secure around Olivia's waist, she leaned her head against his shoulder. "Happy, Mrs. Parker?" he asked, his breath warm against her hair. "Happier than I ever imagined possible," she replied truthfully. "And you, Mr. Parker, any regrets about tying yourself to an Eastern school teacher?" Owen chuckled, the sound rumbling pleasantly through his chest. "Only that I didn't meet you sooner." As they approached the ranch, Olivia gasped in surprise. The house was illuminated with dozens of lanterns, casting a golden glow over the property. Flowers decorated the porch, and as Owen helped her down from the wagon, she saw that a path of rose petals led to the front door. "When did you arrange all this?" she asked, amazed. "I had some help," Owen admitted with a smile. "The ranch hands and Mrs. Jensen conspired while we were at the reception." Inside, the transformation continued. The main room was spotless, with fresh flowers on every surface and a small table set for two near the fireplace. A bottle of champagne chilled in a bucket of ice, and the delicious aroma of Mrs. Jensen's special chicken and dumplings wafted from covered dishes on the table. "I thought you might be hungry," Owen explained, suddenly looking a bit uncertain. "I know it's not as fancy as what you might have expected for a wedding supper." Olivia silenced him with a kiss. "It's perfect. Everything is perfect." They enjoyed their private wedding feast, talking and laughing as the tension of the day's formalities melted away. When they had finished eating, Owen rose and extended his hand to her. "Dance with me, Mrs. Parker." "There's no music," Olivia pointed out, though she placed her hand in his willingly. "We'll make our own," Owen replied, drawing her close and beginning to hum softly as they swayed together in the firelight. Later, when the dishes were cleared and the fire had burned low, Owen led Olivia to the bedroom that would now be theirs. He had transformed this space too, with fresh linens on the large bed and more flowers on the dresser. As husband and wife, they discovered each other with tender passion, their bodies finding the same harmony as their hearts. Afterward, As Olivia lay in the circle of Owen's arms, watching the moonlight filter through the curtains, she felt a sense of completion she had never known before. "I love you, Owen Parker," she whispered against his chest. "Thank you for gathering up my scattered belongings that day, and for gathering up my heart as well." Owen's arms tightened around her. "I'll always be there to gather whatever falls, Liv. That's what marriage means to me, being there to pick up the pieces when things go wrong, and to celebrate together when they go right." Olivia lifted her head to look into his eyes, still amazed that this good, strong man was now her husband. "I think we'll have more of the latter than the former." "I believe you're right, Mrs. Parker," Owen agreed, kissing her softly. "I believe you're right." 5 years later, Olivia stood on the deck of a steamship as it approached the coast of England, her husband's steady presence beside her and their 3-year-old daughter, Sarah Eleanor Parker, perched on his shoulders for a better view. "Is that it, Papa? Is that London?" the little girl asked excitedly, pointing to the distant shoreline. "Not quite yet, sweetheart," Owen replied, adjusting his grip on her legs to keep her secure. "We'll dock at Liverpool first, then take a train to London." Olivia smiled at the pair of them, her heart full. The journey to Europe that had once seemed an impossible dream was now reality, made all the sweeter for being shared with the family she loved. The past 5 years had brought challenges. Of course, a difficult first pregnancy that had ended in heartbreaking loss, a season of drought that had threatened the ranch, the adjustment of 2 independent people learning to build a life together. But those challenges had only strengthened their bond, teaching them the truth of Owen's wedding day words about gathering up the pieces together. And there had been joy in abundance, the birth of their daughter, named for both Owen's first wife and Olivia's mother, the expansion of the school to accommodate Silver Creek's growing population, the prosperity of the ranch under their joint management. Olivia had continued teaching until Sarah's birth, then transitioned to tutoring students who needed extra help while raising their daughter. Now, as they embarked on the European adventure they had planned for years, saving carefully and arranging for trusted hands to manage the ranch in their 6-month absence, Olivia felt a deep contentment. They would see the great cities and artwork she had dreamed of, but the greatest treasure was already hers, the love of the man who had kept his unspoken promise never to drop her heart. "What are you thinking about, looking so serious?" Owen asked, noticing her contemplative expression. Olivia smiled up at him, the man whose face had grown even dearer to her with each passing year. "I was thinking about how a broken suitcase and scattered belongings led me to everything I never knew I wanted." Owen shifted little Sarah to his hip so he could wrap his free arm around Olivia's waist. "Best day of my life, finding you on that platform. Even though I was a mess," Olivia teased. "Especially because you were a mess," Owen replied, his blue eyes twinkling. "Gave me the chance to show off my string-tying skills. How else would I have impressed a Boston school teacher?" Olivia laughed and leaned against his solid strength as their daughter pointed excitedly at a passing seabird. In the distance, England awaited them, the first stop on their grand adventure. But Olivia knew that the greatest journey had begun years ago on a dusty train platform in Silver Creek, when a cowboy had gathered her scattered belongings, and in doing so, started gathering the pieces of her heart, a heart he had never once dropped and never would.